6 lines from the bottom, page 150. Vayesov Laban is kol anshe hamoko vayas mishta. Laban gathers everybody together and he makes a banquet. There's going to be a wedding banquet now. Vahiva erev, it was in the evening. Vayikach es Leah bito, he takes Leah his daughter. Vayave Yosei love, he brings in Leah. Vayavo Leah, and Yaakov cohabits with her. And then skip down one. Vayita Lavan is Zilpa shivchasu Leah bito shivcha. He gives her Zilpa as a maidservant. And then the next pasuk says, Vayiba boker v'nei Leah. It was in the morning, and behold, it's Leah. The word hine always in Chumash, the word hine is always an indication of surprise. Like, whoa, it was Leah. Vayomer Lavan mazos asisali. What'd you do to me? Hello, barachal avadati imach v'lamri misani. I worked for Rachel. Why did you cheat me? So obviously these are sociological realities that we have trouble relating to, that the fact that they're putting to a dark room and he doesn't find out till morning that it's Leah. That's the famous cheat that Laban pulled, the cheat that Laban pulls on Yaakov. Now, you know that the Gemara says that Rachel, before Leah went in, Rachel saw she was going to be embarrassed and humiliated. So Yaakov anticipating this eventuality, had made a secret pact with Rachel. They made a secret code. And that way he'd be able to test her, without being, he doesn't see her. They have a secret code over there, and if she knows the code, so it's obviously Rachel. So Rachel, when she saw Leah being taken in, and realized that if Yaakov, she doesn't know the code, he's going to come out storming, and Leah's going to be very embarrassed. So Rachel goes and she gives Leah the code. Okay? Now the Gemara says that as a reward for her tznius, and give tznius, her modesty, her discretion, being discreet, in giving Leah the code, Rachel was rewarded that she then had a descendant, Shaul HaMelech, the king Shaul, who was the first king, and then he had a descendant who was Queen Esther, all of who were very discreet. Shaul HaMelech, when he was anointed king, he had gone looking to find his father's lost donkeys, and he came up to the city of Shmuel Hanavi. And Shmuel Hanavi said to him, forget about the donkeys were found 3 days ago, but I'm anointing you king of Israel. Then the Nach says when he came back home, his uncle said to him, what's new on anything exciting happened? He didn't say a word about being anointed king. I mean, could you just imagine?
Why?
Out of discretion. I don't know why talk about it. Why talk about it? Everybody will find out when they have to find out. Why say it? Why say it? You don't have to say it. When it needs to be found out, that's a sign of humility. Why talk about it? I just you played a basketball game, you scored a whole bunch of points, and they said, hey, how'd the basketball game go? Oh, yeah, good, we won. I scored a lot of points. What do you have to talk about yourself for? It's a form of humility. Yeah, I mean, you just imagine you go with your class trip to Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., they have the trip. And you go with the class, you're standing in front of the White House, and the Secret Service guys come out, and they pull you into the White House, and the president says, listen, I'm retiring, you're the new president. And he sends you home. We have kosher meals, don't worry about it. White House will provide kosher meals, and he sends you home. And then your parents say to you, hey, how was the class trip? Great, saw the Lincoln Monument, everything was great. And didn't say a word about being, by the way, Mom, Dad, I got a surprise for you, but, let's just wait till CNN reports it, you can imagine the discretion that it takes. Okay, that's what the Gemara says. So, the first question is, why does the Gemara describe it as tznius? She gives it to her, and the Gemara says, because of her tznius, modesty, discretion, that she gives past the signs. I mean, if you're asking me, I would have written it as because of her selflessness, what we call in Hebrew mesiras nefesh, her what do you call it? Her willing to go through a tremendous ordeal in order to. I mean, you have to realize when Rachel gave the simanim to Leah, she didn't know she was going to marry Yaakov subsequently. And for all she knew, she'd end up marrying Esav. She is essentially giving up her olam hazeh and her olam haba. Also, a sister shouldn't be embarrassed, okay? So the Gemara is very, very selective in the terminology that it uses. The Gemara calls it modesty. So our first question is, why is it called modesty? Okay, just keep that in mind. In the meantime, we're going to come back to that. So Yaakov says to Laban, hey, why'd you cheat me? Why'd you give me Leah? Now look what Laban says to him in the next pasuk. Vayomer Laban lo yasa kain bimkomenu. It's not done in our place. Lasei satzeir lifnei abechira. We don't give the younger one before the older one. If you were Yaakov Avinu, what would your reaction be? What would you have said?
You promised me Rachel. Why would
Very good. So, in other words, yeah, well, thanks. Why don't you tell me that 7 years ago before I started working for Rachel? You didn't mention a word. All of a sudden, now you're telling me. Why don't you tell me back then? So, and you'll find that Yaakov doesn't say a word. Malay Shavua Zos, go, live with her this week, and then we'll give you the other one in exchange for another 7 years' work. And Yaakov doesn't say a word. He agrees to the deal. Why don't Yaakov protest over here? I mean, what happened over here? You just take it sitting down? He says, well, that's the habit over here. We don't give the younger one before the older one. So the commentators explain what Laban was saying to him was, listen, there's in halacha, there's sometimes an understanding, they call it an understanding. If I buy a car from you, and you say, you sell me the car, and I say, great, and I take the car home, and I find out that it doesn't have a radio. It doesn't have a radio in the car. I say, hey, I saw you sold me the car, there's no radio here. Well, I assumed you didn't care about the radio. One second. You know as well as I do, when you buy a car, it comes with a radio, it comes with a spare tire, it comes with a steering wheel. You can't come back and say, well, because there's something called the accepted norm. Now, if I come back to you and say, hey, Yisrael, where's the what's the thing called? You can tell where you're going. What's that called? GPS. A GPS. I say, Yisrael, where's the GPS? So GPS, I don't know if it's standard in all cars, and you could argue that it's not standard, it wasn't expected. That's where you need a Beis Din to decide what is considered societally standard or not standard.
Was that the norm back then, to marry the oldest and the youngest?
So that's what Laban's saying. Laban's saying, well, the custom in our city is that you don't marry the younger one before the older one, and therefore what's that?
Yaakov did not know this.
This is what Laban's saying to Laban's saying, well, I assume that you knew it, just like everybody else around here knows it. You can't come back claiming also. When you said you wanted to marry Rachel, obviously you meant after marrying Leah. Then that's what you need a Beis Din for in order to decide what is the societal norm, what's not. That's a classic example if I buy a used car from you. Let's say I buy a used car for $10,000. I drive back $5,000. I come back to you the next day and I say, hey, Yishai, where's the spare tire? There's no spare tire here. And Yishai says, yeah, you're right. I said, 1 second, when I bought a car, they expect a spare tire. He says, it's a used car, there's no spare tire. So you have to go and have an arbitrator decide, is that the norm for used cars or not? In other words, I expect yes, you expect no. That's always where you run into trouble. So you have to have an objective standard. That's why Beis Din is there to decide what's considered the objective standard, what's considered not. Okay? Now, so that's the plain meaning over here. Laban says to him, look, you should have known that what the local custom is, and since you agreed to it, obviously you agreed to local custom, which carries a big weight in halacha. Local custom, Yaakov doesn't say a word. Okay. One of the other commentaries says something so sharp. Laban gives Yaakov such a sharp answer over here that he takes the wind out of Yaakov's sails. Yaakov says, hey, what's going on? I work for Rachel. Why'd you give me Leah? So look what Laban says. Vayomer Laban, lo ye'asa ken bimkomenu. In our place, we don't do things like, let's say, satzir lifnei habichira, to put the younger one before the older one. Maybe where you come from, Yaakov, younger brothers go and take what's really for the older brother, like brachas. Maybe where you come from, but where we are, in our place, we don't do stuff like that. It's such a brilliant line, because what could Yaakov possibly say? All Yaakov could say is, yeah, but I had to do it. It was a mitzvah. So I was like, yeah, it was a mitzvah over here too. And I had to get her married off. In other words, whatever you say, Yaakov can't say he didn't do it, because he did do it. So what's he going to say? I did it because I had to do it? So Laban says, yes, I had to do it also. He doesn't say a word. I can't say, is that brilliant? Isn't that brilliant? I love that line. It's just such a classic line. It's like a dream in life when you get a chance to say something like that to somebody. And he's like, well, listen, I learned from you. What do you want over here? You can't come with any tainas on me. That's what the Beis Levi says. Okay, so Yaakov marries her and marries Rachel, and then they start having children. Leah starts having children, and Rachel does not have children. Now, take a look. Leah starts having children one after the other, and then Rachel comes to Leah on page 154, and it says like this: Pasuk Yud Dalet, 4 lines from the bottom. Vayelech Ruvain b'mei ketzir chitim. Ruvain goes out during the wheat harvest. Ruvain's her oldest son, Leah's oldest son. Vayimtza dudoim basode. He finds, these are translated as mandrakes. I don't know what mandrakes are, so we may as well just call them dudoim. How does the article translate them? Dudoim, there you go. He finds these flowers in the field, which according to some of the commentaries are actually what do you call it? They promote. Yeah, they promote pregnancy. What's it called? Fertility or fertility, some sort of fertility flower. Vayavayosam el Leah imo. Reuven brings him to Leah, his mother. Vatomer Rachel el Leah. So Rachel says to Leah, Tinina limi dudoy benech. Let me have some of those dudoim, which obviously makes a lot of sense if they're a fertility flower, because Rachel does not have children yet. Now look at this shakir of a pasuk. Vatomer lo, Leah says to her, Hama'at kachtech es ishi. It's not enough you took my husband, because after Leah married, so Yaakov favored Rachel. She says, not enough you took my husband. Lakachas games dudoy beni. You also want the dudoim that my son has brought in. So, anything about that kind of elicit a reaction?
Seems normal.
Seems normal?
That doesn't seem normal because Rachel is supposed to go to Yaakov to begin with.
And how did Leah end up by him?
And Leah cheated.
Not that.
She gave
him
the password.
Of course, Rachel is the one who gave Leah the password. If not for Rachel, Leah would have never been married to him to begin with. So Rachel goes, she at tremendous mesiras nefesh, at a tremendous personal sacrifice, she gives Leah the simanim. Leah marries. She comes and asks her something to do. It's not enough you took my husband. I completely out of care. Leah is buried in the Maras Machpelah. Leah is one of the matriarchs. Leah is a tzedekis. What's going on here? Doesn't make it. Hold on. Question and comments for a few minutes. Doesn't make any sense, right? At surface level, it would seem not to make any sense. So there's an explanation here. One of the commentaries says a remarkable explanation. And this will answer the original question: why is it called sneas? Called discretion, an act of discretion. So, as opposed to an act of self-sacrifice. If I was writing the Gemara, I would have written, due to Rachel's self-sacrifice, Leah married him and then she was rewarded. Right? Good question, Asher, right? Okay. Now listen to this explanation. What were, no questions or comments till I finish, and then if you have any questions. What were those simonim? The secret password between Yaakov and Rachel. So we, who have been educated and refined by TV and movies, so we would think, well, okay, that's her. It was some sort of knocking pattern, or a whistle, something like that. That's all we would, because that's, we're very deep people. So the das that came to me, Bali Tosos, which are the Tosos in the Gemara, they also wrote a commentary on the Chumash. They say like this, quoting a medrash: the signs between Yaakov and Rachel were laws. The three laws that we say in Bameh Madlikin every Friday night, the laws of Nida, Chala, and Hadlaka Saner. Right? Those are the three areas that a Jewish woman has to be well versed in the laws. The laws of family purity, the laws of challah, separating challah, because that's right, and the laws of lighting the candle for Shabbos, like we say in Bameh Madlikin. So Yaakov Avinu, knowing he was going to marry Rachel, at some point, he taught Rachel these halachas. And he said, look, on the night of the wedding, I'm going to test you. If you know the halachas, then obviously you're the one, okay? So Rachel sees that Leah is about to go in. So what does Rachel do? She calls aside Leah and says, Leah, you're about to marry Yaakov. There are certain laws that every Jewish woman needs to know. And she teaches her these laws. But she never told her that it was a password. She never told her that she was giving it as a password. So Leah, why didn't Rachel tell her? Because if she tell her, then every time Leah looks at Rachel the rest of her life, she says, I owe you one. I'm indebted to you. The reason the Gemara refers to it as tznius is because not what was done in much as how it was done. It was done in such a discreet way that Leah never knows what she received. And that explains why Leah says to Rachel, it's not enough you took my husband? Because Leah doesn't even know that Rachel was... To the contrary, the commentaries say, Rachel kept convincing Leah, you were meant to really be the one because you're the one who's having children and not me. Leah says, you're the one. And Rachel says, yeah, but he worked for you for 7 years. Sure, because Dad knew that that's what it would take and he would pull a switch. And she's got a whole way of convincing Leah she shouldn't feel bad. And the cherry on the cake is she says to her here, now Leah comes to her and says, hey, Rachel, it's not enough you took my husband, you also want the dudoim? Now I want to tell you something. Up until this point, whatever Rachel did is unbelievable. right? If I was Rachel at this point, and Leah would have said that to me, at this point, I would have just said, hey, Leah, I think we better talk. There's a limit. There's just this far that I could go. And look at Rachel's reaction. Rachel's reaction is, you're absolutely right, and therefore, Yaakov will come to your tent tonight, not to my tent. It never says a word about it. That's the tznius. That's why it's called tznius. And I understand why Leah, she's clueless. I don't know. She doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't even know what Rachel has done for her. Then you wonder why the Torah says Yaakov loved Rachel. He loved her because he saw these characteristics in her. That's what he saw in love. He saw this potential. Now, hold on for a second. Now, show you something remarkable. Take a look at Pasuk 22. After Leah has children and all the others have children, and then in Pasuk 22 it says like this, Vayizkor Elokim es Rachel. God remembers Rachel. Page 156. Page 156, 7 lines from the bottom. Vayizkor Elokim es Rachel. God remembers Rachel. Rashi says over here, take a look at Rashi. It's 4 lines from the bottom on the right column. Right column, 4 lines from the bottom. Vayizkor Elokim es Rachel. God remembered Rachel. Zochar lo, he remembered shemasra simoneha lachos. Remember that she gave up the signs. And because she gave up the signs, what does she now merit? Children. She has children. Now look what happens here, gentlemen. It's remarkable. What if Rachel wouldn't have given the signs? Let's say she wouldn't have given the signs. You know what would have happened? Yaakov would have married Rachel. She wouldn't have had children. He would have married Leah anyway. And then Rachel still wouldn't have children. She only had children because of what she did for Leah. Sometimes in life a person says, why should I sacrifice? What am I going to get out of it? What are you going to get out of it? What are you going to get out of it? Something that you may never have before. That's what you're going to get out of it. A little sacrifice and you're going to get something. Had she not sacrificed, she would have gone through this exact same situation. But she would have never had children. And Yaakov would have married Leah. And she'd be stuck without children. And as a result of giving up the simonim, that's why she merits to have children. Sometimes in life a person, not only that, sometimes you do a chesed for somebody. You do a kindness for somebody, right? When is there ever going to be a payoff? When is there ever going to be a payoff for that kindness? You know what the answer is? You don't know. But at some point down the line, there's a pasuk that says, Shalach lach mechal pnei hamayim. Cast your bread in the water, it says. Ki berov yamim timsana. With the passage of time, you'll find it. Now, obviously, it's not talking about a real piece of bread. You throw your bread in the water, you don't need a lot of time to elapse. You're not going to eat that bread ever again. Shalach lach mechal hamayim. There's no French toast over here. It means throw your bread in the water. One day there's going to be payback. There's a story. A guy was in World War I. There was a group of German soldiers, and they captured an Italian platoon. And the commander of the German platoon didn't want to take any prisoners of war. He said, "Take these guys out to the forest and gun them down." There's one Jewish guy in the platoon. There's one Jewish guy in the platoon. He said, "Listen, we took them. They're soldiers. They're helpless. We're not going to gun them down in cold blood." And he convinced the commander not to do it. Okay, about 10, 15 years later, this guy emigrated to America. Actually, went to Chicago. He was living in Chicago. He was working as a glazier. He used to make windows and glass doors, stuff like that. Living in Chicago. And one day there was a building that had a fire. Because they had a fire, they threw out all the windows, all the glass, they threw it out. So this guy brought his wagon. He has a horse and wagon. It's in the 20s. He's got a horse and wagon, and he drives over. He sees all this rejected glass. So he figures he'll take it home, and he'll wash it off. He'll clean it off. So he pulls up the horse. The wagon spends the day loading on this glass, and his hands are filthy from the soot on the glass. So he goes into the building, walks over to the faucet, and he turns it on. And instead of water, beer comes out of the pipe. Beer comes out of the pipe. That's why Chicago people are happy. Beer comes out of the pipe. So the guy's, I just washed his hand. He turns to leave, and the guy grabs him. Turned out this was a headquarters for one of the illegal bootlegging operations during Prohibition. And they managed to hide the beer in the faucets. And so he grabs him and he drags him in a room. There's a room full of guys in there. He said, "What are we going to do with this guy? This guy's going to go to the police." There we go. So they said, "We're going to have to take him out to the forest and kill him." So one of the guys says, yeah, but we better call the boss first. So they call the boss, Tony Big Snake Accardo or whatever his name is. They call the boss. The boss comes into the room and he says, all right, what's the problem? He says, well, this guy knows. He says, okay, you're going to have to kill him. And he looks at him and says, hey, you look familiar from somewhere. Where you from? He says, well, I'm Chicago. Well, before that, I said, Germany. He says, were you ever in the army? He says, yeah. Did you guys ever capture an Italian platoon of soldiers? He says, yeah. He says, and you were the one who said to leave, let them keep him alive, right? He says, yeah. He says, well, I was one of those soldiers. He says, boys, we're going to leave him alive, right? We're going to let this guy go, right? So in life, you never know what comes back to haunt you. You never know what comes back. You do a kindness, and the kindness will come back. One way or another, it's going to come back. There's an incident here in Israel, this is a well-known incident. There was a terrorist attack. And there's a guy about 20 years old who was badly hurt, and a soldier happened to be on miluim. And the soldier was passing by. He saw this guy was badly hurt. He grabbed him, put him in his car, drove him to the hospital, and they got him. They did a surgery on the guy, and he was okay. The family came. Once the soldier saw everything was under control, so the soldier left. Okay. The family wanted to thank him, but they didn't know where he was. They didn't know who the guy was. Now the parents of the victim, the guy who had been injured in the blast, they had a little makola, one of these stores where you sell, one of these stores. So they put up a big sign in the store that says, anybody aware of a soldier who on May 1st, 1997 was at a certain site, please contact us. We'd like to meet him. Okay. One day a woman walks in and she looks at the sign. And she says, I think I know who the soldier is. Because about a year and a half later, she said, who is it? She goes, I think it's my son. My son was on leave, and he told the dad right around then he was on leave, and he told us that he had driven somebody to the hospital. Let me check with my son. And sure enough, she goes home, check with the son. That was the son. And they bring it back, and she meets the lady. And the lady in the store says, how could I possibly thank you? And she says, well, I think I have to tell you something. And she says, let's go in the back room. So you go in the back, she says, this isn't the first time we've met. So he says, I don't remember meeting you. When did we meet? She says, we met about 20 years ago. About 20 years ago, I was pregnant, and I wanted to have an abortion because I was going through a difficult period in my life. And you convinced me not to have the abortion. You convinced me 20 years ago. You spoke to me, you told me it'd be okay. And the child I gave birth to was a soldier who saved your son's life. Right? So there, in life, nothing's wasted. Nothing's wasted. She did a kindness 14 years ago. 14 years earlier, to make a cheshbon, it was 14 years. You forgot all about it. 14 years later, she has a child. That's what Torah is teaching us. Okay, now, go on. Right on that page. Right on that page. It says like this. Vatahar vateled ben, vatomer asaf elokim escher pasi. She gets pregnant, Rachel gets pregnant. And she has a son, page 156, verse 23. And she says, God has, how does he translate? Taken away my disgrace. She's been waiting for a child for all this time. And she says, God's taken away my disgrace. What's the disgrace? The answer is a woman who's childless is in a very, very embarrassing situation. She's a very humiliating situation. We even say on Tisha B'Av, in the special Nachem prayer, when we're trying to describe the state of the Jewish people, it says, we are like a young lady who's lost her husband, the husband of her youth. Can't think of a bigger tragedy. Or the childless woman who sits with her friends and hangs her head in shame. And she's just empty. She's just empty. And everybody else has children around her. So Rachel says, well, God's taken away my disgrace. Now take a look at Rashi here. What does that mean? Rashi says, Umedrash Agod. It's a second column. It's a left column, 4 lines from the top in Rashi. If you find it, please show the person next to you. Umedrash Agod. Right at the end of the 4th line, on the left column on page 156. So it says, like Rashi says like this, Umedrash Agod. Kol zman she'ein la'isha ben. When a woman does not have a child, ein la b'mi litlos sirchona. She doesn't have anybody in the house to blame. Mi sheyesh la ben. When she has a son, tola bo. She blames him. If the husband says, Mi shavar klizeh, who broke this piece of equipment? She says, Bincha, your son. Mi ochal te'enim elu. Who ate the figs? Bincha, your son. I mean, it means a woman is messing up in the house. She broke the washing machine because she put in a chair, tried to wash a chair in the washing machine, or she had the last beer, and the husband wanted, hey, who had the last beer? Your son. Now she's got somebody to deflect, somebody to blame. Says the Rashi, that's Asaf Hashem Esker Pasi. God has put an end to my humiliation. Now my husband won't get ticked off at me. He'll blame the kid. Usually, and it works, by the way. So they say, who had the last beer? Your son. That's my boy. Now I'm proud of him. It's hard as a father. You should know it's hard as a father when your wife's upset at the boys, and you got to get upset with them, and secretly you're really proud of them. Wife says, "Do you know what he did to her today? He glued her to the wall." And you're thinking like, "Whoa, that's terrible." And you're thinking, "That's my boy." There we go. And I didn't even show him how to do it. The funniest thing was when my oldest son was about 3 years old, so my wife was expecting, so she's about 8 months pregnant. And the funniest thing is watching a woman in that state trying to catch a 3-year-old boy to wash his face or give him a bath or something. So she's trying to catch, she's wobbling after him, and he's zipping down under the table and running around. Now I'm supposed to be helping her. I'm supposed to be helping her. And really inside, I'm just thinking, go. I mean, listen, you got to be on the right side. It's the hardest thing in the world. So that's the first thing Rashi says. Now, look at.
Isn't it really weird what Rashi says?
It is a little weird. It's a medrash, right? And Rashi's only saying, Rashi, you see, you're asking a good question. What's your name? Your first name? Aaron. Yeah. Aaron's asking, isn't that weird? That's why you want a kid. So you should know that in Torah we say the things everybody else is afraid to say. We say the things that everybody else is afraid to say. We're willing to admit it. So, for example, we believe we need a mechitza in shul. Because if we don't have a mechitza, the men are going to look at or do worse with the women. Right? We're not in the same level as the conservative and reform. They're obviously on a higher level. They don't need a mechitza. We're willing to admit the weaknesses that others aren't. Do you know that at a cemetery, at the time of when a father dies, if he leaves an inheritance for his children, so there are 2 brachas that are made. There are 2 brachas that are made. One is Baruch Dayan Emes, that God is the just king who even took away the when somebody dies, you justify, you pay tribute to God's justice as hard as it is. There's a second bracha you make. It's called Hatov Ve'ametiv, the bracha of good fortune, because you have an inheritance. You got an inheritance. Isn't that terrible at a time like that? That's what you're thinking about? You know what the answer is? Yeah. Yeah, and we're willing to admit it. Yeah, because the 2 emotions are not mutually exclusive. A person could be grief-stricken, and in the back of his mind, he's still thinking about. A person could be sad, and in the back of his mind, he's thinking of something happy. His mother-in-law came for a visit, but he knows that she's going to leave a lot of money when she leaves. So on the one hand, he's sad, but in the back of her mind, there's something else, and the 2 are not mutually exclusive, right? So we're willing to admit what other people aren't. Is that one of the things that a wife is thinking about? Torah's telling you, yeah. Do you know there's a different bracha you make when a boy is born and a girl is born? When a boy is born, you make a bracha tov u'meitiv, which is the highest caliber bracha. When a girl is born, you also make a bracha, you make a shechianu. But it's not the same level bracha. Why? Because human nature is that we're happier when a boy is born than when a girl is born. That's terrible, says the feminist. Yeah, that's terrible. Well, it's not terrible. It's human nature, and we're willing to admit it. So when your wife is expecting Emir Hashem, somebody says to you, do you want a boy or a girl? So you say, doesn't matter as long as it's healthy. And if you look at your wife, and if she's not listening, you say, and there's a bris. Right? That's the standard answer. So, and we know it, and we're willing to admit it. We're not whitewashing anything. So one of the things apparently, that's a good question. One of the things apparently a woman is thinking about when she has a son is, listen, I got somebody to share to blame. Women, the one thing they want more than anything else, right? You guys should pay me for this. A woman thinks, the one thing a woman wants more than anything else in life is she wants to be cherished by her husband. When a man is upset, doesn't matter what you're upset about. Man's upset, the wife thinks you're upset with her. Because that's her dread fear in life that the husband should be upset with her. And if you're ever upset, doesn't matter, you could have lost your entire life savings. And you come out, your wife says, what's wrong? You say, well, we're wiped out. She's thinking, but that's not what's really bothering him. You know? You know? And the response is, listen, girl, I like you, but not that much. You know, I got money. You know, we just wiped out. It's not you. It's not because supper wasn't good. Believe me, that's not what's bothering you. So a woman wants something like, well, I don't want to get blamed. And women have an ability of messing things up in the house, you know, and she doesn't want to be blamed. So Rashi seems to be telling you that even that's a consideration. Okay, now look at the next pasuk. Vatikra Shemo Yosef, she calls his name Yosef, Lemor, saying, Yosef Hashem li ben acher, may Hashem give me another son. Isn't that a bit odd also? Isn't that a bit odd? After all these years, she finally had a son. And instead of saying, well, what do we call the son? Call him something that says thank you. She says, what's his name? His name is, can I have one more? After all these years, you finally, hey mom, can I have a chocolate bar? And she gives you a chocolate bar. You say, can I have another one? You know, and you don't say thank you. You all know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen. You just lost the first one, didn't you? Hi mom, can I have a candy here? Can I have another one? You're looking around already. You know, where are we going? We're going to the zoo. And then where are we going the next day? Well, kid, you're staying home both days. So well, what is that? Oh, wait, we can't say Yosef. What? Yosef Hashem li be'acher, Hashem had another son to be. What? Thank you, a word, something. What's going on? Rachel Imenu, what's going on? So, you know, have you ever been to a siyum? You ever been to a siyum? What does this say at the end of the siyum? What does a person say? We say the Kaddish. What else do we say? That little prayer over there. Papa this, Papa that, Papa. A lot of the papas, yeah. But what else do we say? We say a prayer. We should make many more siyums. In other words, the siyum is a stepping stone to more ruchni growth. We did this, and I want more because it's a building block. Again, I don't like using the word spiritual. I like using the word ruchni. In the spiritual realm, we want to grow. Rachel sees children as a spiritual contribution. She's not in it for the child. She's in it for the spiritual contribution. This is going to be a building block in the Jewish people, and she wants to participate in building the Jewish people. And that's why she gave Yaakov her maidservant when she didn't have children, because she figured I'll at least have the building. I'll build this child for the Jewish people, even if I can't contribute the physical body. So when she has a Yosef, she says, Yosef Hashem li ben acher. Just like when we make a siyum, I want to have another one so I could participate in the building of the Jewish people. It's not just Rachel being an ingrate and saying, well, God, thank you. Give me another one. It's Rachel saying, a tefillah that I should have. I've grown this much now. Now I want to grow more and have another child. Okay. Well, hold. I want to finish a couple of points and then I'll get the questions. One more point here in this parsha before we go on to Parshas Vayishlach, and this is one of the most poignant things that I've ever heard. I heard this many years ago from Rabbi Shlomo Twersky in Denver, and it page 160. Go ahead, Aaron, very quickly. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, wouldn't another opinion be that she wants to have another child in order that she doesn't feel inferior to her maidservants?
Yeah, that's certainly part of it. But that's why she only asked for one more. She knows she can only have one more. They knew prophetically that they're going to be 12 altogether. Yeah. Okay. Now, take a look at page 160. Yaakov Avinu, after this whole, Yaakov Avinu has accumulated a lot of wealth, and at a certain point, Yaakov Avinu decides it's time to leave. Now, if you take a look at page 160, Pasuk Lamed Aleph, it says, Vayishma es divrei b'nei Lavan lemar. He hears the words of the sons of Lavan, saying, everybody see that right in the middle of the page? On page 160, right in the middle of the page, where that big Lamed Aleph is. So Vayishma es divrei b'nei Lavan lemar, lokach Yaakov es kol asher lavinu. Yaakov has taken everything that belongs to our father. U'me'asher lavinu asa es kol hakavod hazeh. He has made all of this money off of our father. So they're grumbling. Yaakov's been there 20 years. He pulled his shtick with the sticks and the shape and everything else. And now he's gotten very, very wealthy. And they're grumbling. Vayar Yaakov es pnei Lavan v'neinenu imo ki yisrael shoshav. Yaakov sees Lavan's face and it's not like he used to be. What's the plain meaning? Plain meaning is that Yaakov arrived in town and Lavan was all smiles. Hey, good to see you, nephew. Looking for money, cash. He's going to make some money over here. All of a sudden, after 20 years, Lavan ain't so happy. Why isn't he happy? Because Yaakov's rich. Lavan, resentment. So You don't take much, you don't have to be a genius to figure out Laban's not happy with you. So he sees Laban's face isn't like he used to be, time to go. That's the plain meaning. It's another idea over here which I think applies to every single one of us.
How is he accruing all this wealth if he's...
He incurred the wealth by accumulating the sheep and then selling it off, and his sheep was very high priced. You see, he worked for the last 6 years accumulating for himself. And then he sells it off and he acquires maidservants and everything else. So that's the plain meaning of the puzzle. There's another meaning over it, and the meaning is like this. Every one of you, every one of us, myself included, I'm sure without a doubt that at some point in life, there was something you took a look at and you said to yourself, I would never do that, smoke that, snort that, drink that, be involved with that, behave like that. Something that you looked at and you said, I would never. And then either a week, month, year, or decade later, you found you were doing it. Now what changed? Objectively, you changed. The thing itself didn't change because when you were in a very objective state of mind, you saw that it was inappropriate. But somehow you changed and it doesn't look as bad anymore. Right? You changed. You gave in, peer pressure, plain desire, and you compromised your values, and it's a compromise because when you were objective, you saw that it's really not something you should be involved with.
Is that bad or good?
So it says like this: Vayar Yaakov es pnei Laban. When Yaakov first arrived in town, he takes one look at Laban. What do you think Laban looks like to Yaakov? Yaakov's a man of goodness and purity. He takes a look at Laban. What does he see? Oh, no good, Nick. Oh, lowlife. Ah, cheat. Ah, sneak. A scoundrel. Yaakov v'neinenu imo ki yisrael shoshem. Laban's face doesn't look the same. Doesn't look so bad. I don't know. Laban doesn't seem to look like such a bad guy anymore. Time to leave. Time to leave. That means I've changed. If I don't see Laban for what he really is, it's time to change. You know, if you're walking on, you see 3 guys on the sidewalk with motorcycles, leather jackets and chains and a couple of brass knuckles. Oof, I won't have anything to do with them. Then 2 years later, after you've been educated and grown up a little bit, you say, hey, those are pretty good guys over there. These are guys I like to hang out with. Who's changed? These guys haven't. The motorcycle guy, Hell's Angels guys are not learning Musar, that I can tell you. You know, they haven't changed. You've changed. Oh, it doesn't look so bad. Time to go. Yaakov Avinu, I don't know if it literally happened to Yaakov. I doubt that Yaakov ever really mistook love on his face. But the Torah is teaching us a life lesson. It teaches us, you know what? As a human being, being a human being, you are prone to this weakness of being willing to compromise your values. Things don't look as bad, then it's time to go. That's the life lesson. Okay, we'll start Vayishlach in Mitzvah Hashem.